Yesterday morning, I had a dream that I believe was very prophetic. It was not one of those normal kind of dreams, and I want to submit it to you all to pray about it, to seek the Lord about it. I believe there's hope and redemption in it, but I believe it's a warning. You know, there are some things that we receive from the Lord that are conditional, that we can pray and it makes a difference, or it minimizes the danger or the damage. I know some things are set in stone, but some things can be altered and changed by human behavior and prayer, such as often we talk about Hezekiah, who received the prophetic word that wasn't wrong. Get your house in order, you're going to die. And he turned his face to the wall and repented, and 15 years was added to his life. Same with Jonah and Nineveh. By the time Jonah got his act together and got to Nineveh, he was preaching, judgment was coming, but that judgment was put off. And so I share this dream to you today in the fear of the Lord. I've just given it a title to recognize it, the Rebirth of America dream. I had an intense dream Saturday morning, March the 9th, 2024, that seemed prophetic about the eclipse in April 2024 that's being talked about, triggering an awakening that starts in April 2024 and lasts until July 2025. So over a year. I'm only sharing the dream, no more, no less. I was moving fast in time in the dream, starting in April 2024 with the eclipse that crossed over Texas, which people have been talking about. It seemed in this dream that Texas was pulled into this. At the same time, around April 2024, a conception, metaphorically, a conception happened at this time and coincided with this eclipse, leading to something serious happening in the nation before the elections in November 2024. Before the elections, something serious. This event caused absolute chaos and affected the elections in the U.S. in November 2024. It seemed like an epic October surprise, and pandemonium ensued. In the dream, I knew that President Biden had fizzled out and they had tried hard to prop him up. But this event, right before the election, caused a major division of America right before and during the election time. It intensified the division already in the nation to a very scary and intense level. And then the dream shifted, and it was somehow I was in 1968, and I was given an old newspaper which said, quote, assassination of two major leaders in the same year of the Chicago Convention, unquote. I'm sure you know this to be the case as well. Robert Kennedy Sr., Bobby Kennedy, and Martin Luther King Jr., who were both killed in 1968, tragically. But what's also interesting about 1968, the Democratic Convention was in Chicago. And it's in Chicago in 2024. And I knew that was significant. But through all of the painful chaos in the streets, the economy, and on the news, America had a huge awakening of awareness of evil and corruption going on in America. And it was like the vast majority of the nation on the other side of this said, we can never let this happen again. We can't. The dream ended, and at the end of the dream, it was July 2025. Now, for some reason, July the 11th was highlighted to me on the calendar. It seemed like most of the chaos ended in the nation, and things were starting to heal by July 2025. It had all started in the April-May 2024 time with the eclipse beginning, coinciding with a conception. And there were 40 weeks long of pregnancy with intense birth pains intensifying before the delivery. And then there were complications before the birth and after the birth. Since the conception happens in around April, 9 months later would have the baby being born in January of 2025. Now, what's interesting about that, that's also typically when the inauguration takes place. But this baby was born, and the thing that happened right before the election was almost like it went into Braxton Hicks contractions. It seemed like the birthing time was then, but it was still very intense and felt very real. And it was like the baby wanted to come at that moment, but somehow it was delayed to not being born ahead of time as a premature baby before the election, when this bad event happens, and it held off until January. So the birth, as I said, was in January 2025 and was placed in an incubator even after it was born for several months. The baby lived, and it was a beautiful baby. And the dream ended by me seeing this baby wrapped in an American flag. And it was like in the maternity ward. And you know how like they have babies laying in little beds with their name tags at the top? The name of the baby was America. And so I couldn't help believe it was the rebirth of America. And so I think what's important, to share about that, just a summary. Let me pull this summary up here. The dream seems to portray an awakening starting in April 2024 with a significant shaking going on, starting then. Coinciding with a 40-week-long painful and traumatic pregnancy. A traumatic event triggers chaos before the elections, and the chaos lasted for several months. And the birth occurred in January of 2025, requiring care in the incubator at least until July 2025. The 1968 convention, which was chaotic, by the way, the Democratic Convention in 1968 was very chaotic. It was very much a time like now. There was a lot of protests and just, does anybody remember the convention of 1968 in Chicago? Yeah, well, it's scheduled to be in Chicago this year. And here's the part. And we need to pray about all of this. I think this is a warning and a call to the intercessors and to the people of God to take this serious. Because in the dream, referencing the 1968 Democratic Convention in Chicago, referencing knowing Martin Luther King Jr., and of course Bobby Kennedy were both killed, I felt that the warning was there seems to be an indication of a coming assassination attempt sometime during this 16-month process from April 2024 till July 2025. And so we don't want to see that happen to anybody. But I feel that this is important to share and to put before the body of believers to pray into this, to see if the Lord can intervene and help us and show us what to pray and how to pray, and if some of this can be lessened or prevented. And I believe the dream was significant. And so I think we are entering into a unique time in American history. These next, starting in April, I mean really now, but starting in April, there is a 16-month process or thereabouts that I believe is very integral to the restoration or the rebirthing of this nation. So will you help me pray about this? Will you help me pray into this?